In this video, we'll be talking about how to read the chart for the Terra Firma Cowl knit along. A chart in knitting is a visual representation of the right side of the fabric. Each box or cell in the grid represents one action that results in a stitch, or a grouping of actions that processes multiple stitches. Each row represents a row or a round of knitting, and each column represents a column of stitches. Among Atlas Knits patterns, there is a consistent set of stitch symbols. Other designers and publishers may use different symbols, which is why it's important to take a close look at the chart key. If you're knitting flat, like we are in this pattern, the chart symbols are representative of the stitch that's created on the right side of the work. So for example, if the stitch is knit on the right side, it would be purled on the wrong side to achieve the same effect. Both of these instructions are noted in the key. If you're knitting flat and there is only one definition for a symbol, that means the stitch is only used on one side of the work, or it is worked the same on both sides of the piece. Now that we understand the general concept of a knitting chart, let's talk about how to read a chart. There are different ways to read a chart depending on whether you are working flat or in the round. For this cowl, this piece is worked flat, and so we're going to learn about how to read charts for flat knitting. On a chart, the side the row numbers are on indicates where the row should be started. Right side rows are read from right to left, and the stitches should be worked according to the right side instructions for each chart symbol. Wrong side rows are read from left to right and should be worked according to the wrong side instructions for each chart symbol. In some patterns that have shaping for lace or other stitches, a no-stitch symbol may represent empty space. There doesn't need to be any action taken for these squares. They're just placeholders in the chart so you can help see how the stitches align in columns. Some charts may also include some bordered stitches. In this chart, there are a few different borders to pay attention to. The first one is the dotted border on row 1. And there is a footnote with some special instructions for the first time this is worked. You can see a visual representation of that piece of the pattern in a different video. There is also a dark border around the leaf pattern section. In order to save page space and make sure this chart was readable when it was printed, I excluded a duplicate section from the chart. Because it's exactly the same, we can repeat the section again without having to include it twice in the chart. So when you get to this arrow between stitch markers 3 and 4 on the first row, you'll want to rework these stitches in the leaf section that are bordered in the first part of the row. On the wrong side, in between stitch markers 4 and 3, you'll want to do the same thing. Repeat those stitches in the dark border so that you get a leaf on the other side of your cowl. One more thing I wanted to point out on this chart is on some of the rows there are some numbers in the middle of a grouping of stitches. Here on row 4, you can see that there's a 7 in the middle of the stockinette section of the leaf. This is an indicator of how many stitches are in that section and can help you know how many to knit or purl, or how many to work in that same stitch pattern without having to count them yourself. I hope this was helpful for you and that you feel a little bit more confident about looking at charts and reading charts for this cowl.